Why did millions of exhausted nurses, doctors, and emergency workers emotionally trust a television show more than most real hospital dramas? And why did the actors making it slowly begin burning out themselves? Chaos, alarms, stretchers crashing through crowded hallways, doctors shouting over each other. ER didn't feel like television. It felt like the nurses, doctors, paramedics, and emergency workers trying to hold themselves together while other people's lives depended on them. The characters weren't glamorous. They looked sleep-deprived, emotionally overloaded, burned out long before burnout became a public conversation. Nobody stopped talking long enough to explain things. Patients died suddenly. Doctors snapped at each other from stress and lack of sleep. Characters forgot to eat, made mistakes while exhausted, tried to joke through trauma they clearly hadn't processed. And for a lot of real healthcare workers watching at home, ER didn't feel exaggerated, it felt familiar. But behind the scenes, something strange was happening. The emotional exhaustion audiences connected to so deeply was beginning to affect the actors themselves. One star became too famous to stay. Another quietly walked away from the biggest show on television. And the actor audiences trusted most eventually admitted he wanted his life back. Because the show about burnout was slowly burning everyone out. Carol Hathaway was supposed to die in the very first episode. George Clooney went from struggling actor to one of the most famous men in the world almost overnight. Anthony Edwards became the emotional center of the series, then suddenly chose to leave at the height of its success. And Noah Wyle spent so many years inside the chaos of ER that audiences watched him emotionally grow up in real time. By the end of the show, fans weren't just attached to the characters, they felt emotionally connected to the people playing them. Because ER created something television rarely achieves. It made fictional people feel emotionally real. If you enjoy revisiting classic television stories like this, consider subscribing to Backtrack Television, because some of the biggest shows of the 90s had far more complicated stories behind the scenes than audiences ever realized. When ER premiered in 1994, television changed almost instantly. The series was created by Michael Crichton, the writer behind Jurassic Park, who originally based parts of ER on his own experiences as a medical student decades earlier. And unlike older medical dramas, ER didn't slow down so audiences could comfortably follow along. It moved like a panic attack. Handheld cameras raced through crowded hallways. Doctors interrupted each other constantly. Patients screamed in trauma rooms, and nobody ever seemed fully in control. ER also changed how television was filmed. Long tracking shots followed doctors and nurses through crowded hallways without slowing down. Conversations overlapped. Medical jargon flew past viewers without explanation. The camera moved like another exhausted employee inside the hospital. That filmmaking style became hugely influential across modern television. That was the point. ER wasn't really about medicine. It was about emotional survival. Even the pilot episode quietly established the emotional heart of ER. Mark Greene calming an overwhelmed John Carter during the chaos of his first shift. Not with some heroic speech, just calm reassurance from one exhausted doctor to another frightened young one. Mark Greene looked permanently exhausted. Doug Ross hid compassion behind arrogance and sarcasm. Carol Hathaway carried the emotional weight of entire hospital floors. Peter Benton buried vulnerability beneath discipline and perfectionism. And John Carter entered the hospital as a nervous student before slowly becoming emotionally scarred by the work itself. Healthcare workers connected to the show for a reason. The characters weren't superheroes. They skipped meals, missed relationships, snapped under pressure, carried guilt home after shifts, and then came back the next morning and did it again. That emotional realism became addictive for audiences. At its peak, ER drew more than 30 million viewers and helped redefine television drama forever. Shows like Grey's Anatomy, House, and Scrubs all borrowed pieces of its DNA. But many longtime viewers still talk about ER differently than other 90s television shows. Not as fun nostalgia, more like emotional memory. Many nurses and doctors still remember exactly where they were the first time they watched certain episodes. Because ER didn't just entertain people, it made them feel seen. If you want to watch the full series, I put links in the description. And what made that emotional connection even stranger was how closely the actors themselves were beginning to resemble the people they played. Before ER, George Clooney was a struggling actor trying to survive Hollywood. Failed pilots, small television roles, financial instability. At one point, he reportedly lived with actor Richard Kind while trying to keep his career alive. Then suddenly, Doug Ross changed everything. Ross wasn't just another television doctor. He became one of the defining TV characters of the entire decade. But audiences didn't love Doug Ross because he was perfect. They loved him because he cared too much. Ross constantly crossed professional boundaries, fought hospital administrators, broke rules for patients, especially children. Some of the most emotional episodes in ER revolved around Doug Ross refusing to emotionally detach the way doctors were often expected to. One storyline in particular captured why audiences became so emotionally attached to him. Ross regularly became too emotionally invested in his pediatric patients, especially children suffering from abuse, neglect, or situations the system kept failing to fix. And instead of emotionally distancing himself, the way many emergency doctors are often forced to do for survival, Ross carried those cases home with him emotionally. You could see it all over his face, the frustration, the anger, the guilt. There were moments where he bent rules, argued with administrators, and risked his own career because he couldn't emotionally accept watching vulnerable children get lost inside broken systems. One of the most controversial examples came when Ross violated medical protocol to help ease the suffering of a terminally ill child. That decision nearly destroyed his career. But it also perfectly captured why audiences connected to him so deeply. Doug Ross wasn't reckless simply because he liked breaking rules. He was reckless because he cared too much. And healthcare workers immediately recognized the emotional danger in that. Because one of the hardest parts of emergency medicine is learning how much compassion you can afford to carry without it eventually crushing you. That's part of why audiences trusted him so deeply. Doug Ross represented the fantasy that empathy could survive inside systems designed to emotionally harden people over time. And for many viewers working long hospital shifts themselves, that idea mattered. Almost overnight, George Clooney became one of the most recognizable men in America. Women reportedly gathered outside studios hoping to see him. Magazine covers exploded. Tabloids followed him constantly. But fame came with pressure. Clooney later admitted he feared becoming trapped forever as TV Dr. Doug Ross. And behind the scenes, the production schedule was already becoming legendary for its intensity. Long hours, emotionally draining scenes, constant pressure. Ironically, the show about exhausted doctors was exhausting the people making it. And while Clooney was trying to escape typecasting, another actor was quietly trying to escape fame itself. Susan Lewis felt different from many television doctors at the time. She wasn't glamorous. She wasn't trying to dominate every room. She felt approachable, like the exhausted doctor quietly staying late because nobody else would. Some of ER's most emotionally believable moments weren't dramatic speeches. They were small conversations between Susan Lewis and Mark Greene after brutal shifts. Two emotionally drained people trying to decompress before doing it all again tomorrow. That quiet realism mattered, especially to healthcare workers, because ER understood something many medical dramas ignored. Exhaustion isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's just sitting silently at the end of a shift, wondering how you're supposed to emotionally reset before the next patient arrives. And viewers trusted Susan Lewis because she felt emotionally grounded, which makes Sherry Stringfield's real-life decision even more surprising. At the height of ER's success, she walked away. The ratings were massive, the fame was enormous, and she voluntarily left it behind. Her reasons sounded surprisingly simple. Exhaustion? Pressure? Wanting a normal life again? Discomfort with celebrity culture? Millions of viewers wanted the life she had, but she wanted distance from the machine creating it. And in retrospect, that decision feels strangely connected to ER itself. Because while audiences experienced the show as emotional comfort, the people making it were quietly running out of emotional energy. But no character represented that emotional fatigue more powerfully than Mark Greene. Mark Greene didn't feel like a television hero. That's exactly why audiences loved him. Long before conversations about physician burnout became mainstream, Mark Greene already looked emotionally exhausted. Anthony Edwards played him with quiet depletion instead of television heroism. He wasn't the coolest doctor or the smartest. He just kept trying. And healthcare workers immediately recognized that emotional reality. The long shifts, the emotional compartmentalization, the pressure of carrying responsibility while running on empty. Mark Greene felt painfully believable, and no episode captured that emotional realism more powerfully than Love's Labor Lost. In the episode, Greene makes a devastating medical mistake during a complicated childbirth case. The mother dies, and afterward, there's no dramatic television triumph waiting to restore emotional balance. Greene looks destroyed, exhausted, guilty, haunted by the realization that sometimes even good doctors can't save everyone. Many healthcare workers still consider it one of the most emotionally accurate portrayals of medical trauma television has ever produced. Patients trusted him, co-workers depended on him, and audiences emotionally leaned on him too. Over time, he quietly became the emotional center of the entire hospital. One scene especially stayed with viewers for years. Greene, sitting in Hawaii during his final days, watching the ocean, listening to Somewhere Over the Rainbow, not surrounded by hospital chaos, not giving some dramatic television speech, just a tired man trying to find peace before the end. That emotional restraint devastated audiences more than any melodramatic ending ever could. And behind the scenes, Anthony Edwards himself was becoming exhausted. The production schedule consumed his life. The emotional demands were relentless. And eventually, despite massive success, Edwards realized he wanted something the show couldn't give him anymore: time with his family. His decision to leave shocked audiences, but what happened next devastated them. Because when Mark Greene died, ER changed forever. When Mark Greene's death episode aired, millions of viewers reacted emotionally as if they had lost someone real, not a character, someone they trusted. And that reaction revealed something unusual about ER. Audiences didn't just admire these characters, they emotionally depended on them. For many doctors and nurses especially, Greene represented something television rarely showed honestly: a good doctor slowly running out of emotional energy. But what made Anthony Edwards' story even more heartbreaking was what audiences would eventually learn years later. Because the calmest man in the hospital had been carrying invisible pain for decades. Anthony Edwards later revealed deeply personal allegations of childhood sexual abuse involving producer Gary Goddard. For many fans, the revelation was shocking, because Edwards had always projected steadiness, privacy, emotional calm. But suddenly, viewers realized the actor behind television's most emotionally dependable doctor had been carrying hidden trauma for much of his life. And in retrospect, the emotional exhaustion audiences saw in Mark Greene feels different, more vulnerable, more human, more real. But Anthony Edwards wasn't the only actor whose identity became tangled with ER. Noah Wyle experienced something equally strange. Audiences watched him grow up emotionally inside the show. When John Carter first arrived at County General, he felt completely overwhelmed, nervous, privileged, inexperienced. Senior doctors yelled at him constantly. Peter Benton pushed him relentlessly because he believed weakness could get people killed. But over time, audiences slowly realized Benton's emotional distance wasn't cruelty, it was survival. Benton represented another side of medicine many healthcare workers recognized immediately: the belief that vulnerability could become dangerous inside high-pressure environments. And despite Benton's intensity, his relationship with Carter became one of the emotional foundations of ER. The tough mentor slowly watching a frightened student become a real doctor. Nurses lost patience with Carter, attendings humiliated him, and viewers loved him because he felt real. Carter wasn't naturally cool, he was insecure, and that made audiences emotionally invest in him immediately. Over time, though, the hospital changed him. Patients died, friends disappeared, trauma accumulated. Eventually, the pressure broke through. After Carter survived a brutal stabbing inside the hospital, something in him changed emotionally. The episode stunned audiences partly because of how suddenly the violence happened. One moment, the hospital felt routine. The next, Carter and Lucy Knight were bleeding on the floor while the rest of the ER staff unknowingly continued working nearby. The emotional aftermath changed Carter permanently. The confidence disappeared, the emotional balance disappeared. And slowly, he developed a dependency on painkillers while trying to continue functioning like nothing was wrong. Some of the rehab and detox scenes involving Carter were almost uncomfortable to watch because they felt so emotionally honest. The shame, the denial, the exhaustion, the desperation to appear functional while quietly falling apart. That storyline became one of the most emotionally honest arcs ER ever attempted. Because Carter didn't suddenly collapse overnight, he kept showing up to work, kept trying to function, kept pretending he was okay. And many healthcare workers recognized exactly what that looked like. ER understood something emotionally difficult about medicine. The people responsible for saving lives often become extremely skilled at hiding their own pain. Carter wasn't abusing substances because he was weak. He was overwhelmed, traumatized, trying to numb experiences he didn't know how to emotionally process anymore. And that gradual unraveling felt painfully believable to many viewers in medicine, especially people who understood the emotional cost of witnessing trauma day after day while still being expected to perform at a high level. The optimistic young doctor audiences met in the early seasons slowly began looking emotionally exhausted himself, and viewers felt that transformation happen in real time. And because Noah Wyle spent so many years inside the role, audiences almost felt like they grew up alongside him. At one point, Wyle became one of the highest-paid actors on television, but fame brought enormous pressure. After Clooney left, he increasingly became the face of ER itself. And for years, audiences struggled separating Noah Wyle from John Carter. But unlike many celebrities, Wyle slowly moved toward activism and humanitarian work instead of chasing Hollywood mythology. Years later, he was even arrested during protests advocating for healthcare and social causes, which created a strange emotional parallel. The actor who played an idealistic doctor eventually dedicated parts of his real life to fighting for real systems of care. And then there was Carol Hathaway. Carol Hathaway often felt like the nurse holding the entire emergency room together. And for many real nurses watching ER, that felt incredibly familiar. Because nurses are often the emotional glue holding hospitals together while absorbing pressure from every direction. Doctors came and went, administrators created policies, surgeons argued, patients panicked. But nurses were often the people still standing in the room, comforting terrified families at 3 in the morning. ER understood something many television dramas missed completely. Hospitals don't run on authority alone. They run on nurses carrying enormous emotional responsibility while somehow keeping everything functioning. And Carol Hathaway embodied that reality constantly. She dealt with arrogant doctors, emotionally unstable patients, impossible workloads, exhausted coworkers, families looking for reassurance during the worst moments of their lives. And somehow, she still kept showing up. That emotional labor became one of the reasons nurses connected so deeply to ER. Because Carol wasn't written like fantasy television. She looked frustrated sometimes, emotionally drained, underappreciated, completely overwhelmed by everyone needing something from her at once. and that honesty made her feel real. Carol Hathaway represented a kind of emotional labor television rarely acknowledged at the time. The expectation that caregivers continue comforting everyone else, even while quietly falling apart themselves. Part of that realism came from the writers themselves. The ER creative team regularly met with real nurses to hear stories about exhaustion, emotional overload, impossible shifts, and the realities of hospital life. That authenticity became embedded into the DNA of the show. One of the reasons audiences became so emotionally invested in Carol was her relationship with Doug Ross. Because beneath all the chaos, they represented something deeply human. Two exhausted healthcare workers trying to build a life together while constantly carrying the emotional weight of other people's suffering. Their relationship was messy, complicated, sometimes frustrating, but it felt believable. And years later, Doug and Carol's reunion gave audiences something ER rarely offered for long: emotional closure. And that emotional realism became one of the defining strengths of ER, especially for viewers working inside real hospitals every day, which makes one behind-the-scenes detail almost unbelievable. Carol Hathaway was originally supposed to die in the pilot episode after her suicide attempt, but test audiences connected so strongly with Juliana Margulies that producers completely changed their plans. Audiences emotionally refused to let her go, and honestly, it's difficult to imagine ER without her. Because characters like Carol Hathaway grounded ER emotionally. Even during chaos, the show usually understood restraint. It understood exhaustion, human error, quiet grief, the emotional weight healthcare workers carry long after shifts end. But ER also understood another side of medicine. Some people survived emotional trauma by becoming harder, more detached, more sarcastic, more difficult to connect with. And no character represented that better than Dr. Robert Romano. Romano was arrogant, cruel, sharp-tongued, but underneath the hostility was someone who seemed terrified of vulnerability, which made his eventual downfall strangely tragic beneath all the shock value. As the years continued, longtime viewers slowly began sensing a tonal shift. The show became bigger, louder, more sensational, and nothing symbolized that shift more than Dr. Romano's infamous helicopter death. After previously losing an arm in a helicopter accident, Romano was later killed by another helicopter entirely. Even longtime fans weren't sure how to react, because early ER felt grounded in emotional realism. Later ER sometimes drifted towards spectacle, and many viewers quietly felt the difference. The more the show tried escalating chaos, the further it moved away from the fragile humanity that originally made audiences emotionally trust it. Years later, healthcare workers still talk about ER differently than most television dramas. Not because it was medically perfect, but because emotionally, it often felt honest. The show understood fatigue, compassion burnout, dark humor, emotional compartmentalization. It understood what happens when people spend years caring for others while quietly neglecting themselves. That's why the series still resonates across generations. Younger viewers continue discovering it through streaming. Older fans revisit it during difficult periods of life, and many people still associate the show with comfort, grief, stress, and emotional survival all at once. George Clooney escaped television and became a global movie star without losing the warmth audiences first trusted in Doug Ross. Noah Wyle built a quieter public identity rooted more in activism and humanity than celebrity excess. Juliana Margulies reinvented herself into one of television's most respected dramatic actresses. And Anthony Edwards chose a far more private life after carrying one of television's heaviest emotional roles for nearly a decade. But what audiences truly remember about ER isn't just the cast. It's the feeling, the exhaustion, the urgency, the humanity. ER wasn't comforting because people survived. It was comforting because even when they were emotionally exhausted, they kept showing up anyway. But this wasn't the only cast whose story took a surprising turn. Some of the biggest shows of the 90s had behind-the-scenes moments that completely changed their legacy. And one of them is even more shocking than this. If you think this story was unexpected, wait until you see what happened next. Click the video on your screen now. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe to Backtrack Television for more deep dive stories behind the shows people still can't forget. And let me know in the comments, which character felt the most emotionally real to you? And do you think the show changed after Mark Greene left?